Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our new edition of PKT Chat Live. What up, Caleb? What up, Jesse?
Hey.
We did this on launch day, and it seemed like it was received pretty well. And so we figured we might as well do it again. So here we are. Got the squad here to kind of give some pretty exciting updates. I just saw, Caleb, you just posted something in the Discord about the DNS and how things are starting to look. It's going to be super important come infrastructure day. So maybe we want to kind of jump into that thing first and foremost, and we can kind of chat about that.
Yeah. This is important news for people. So what's going to happen? And I wrote about it in my blog, but I'll repeat it for here. What's going to happen is starting next week, we're going to reactivate the network steward institution. I'm running for network steward. Nobody else is running, so I'm not.
Ooh, it sounds like we're losing Caleb, huh?
Oh yeah, it does. Oh, he's
Do you hear me? Is there a problem? Because I'm seeing a network error.
Yeah, you're frozen.
You're frozen for a second.
Am I back?
Yeah,
you're back.
Okay, so I'm running for network steward beginning next week, and I'm going to use the funds from that to build this DNS project. It's very important for people to understand that if you vote.
Oh. Internet down in France.
Yeah, that's no fun.
It's actually showing that my internet is pretty unstable as well. I wonder if that's why.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I'm might be the only one with some good internet right now.
Yeah, it's weird. Oh, it looks like. Oh, that was weird. Yeah, it looked like oh, Caleb's gone. Here, I'm gonna bring up, check this out. Here comes Caleb back.
My home internet just gave up. I don't know if it's going to do it again. I got the phone here, which might help. But anyway, so here's the situation. If you vote for me by next week, and you have to do it in your lockups, in your stakes. If you vote for me, then you'll get early access to be able to register domains early. I really highly encourage you to look at the Substack, my Substack, The Good Work, because it gives all the details of exactly how this thing's going to work. But that's the key point is if you want in early for registering domains in the first weeks, you have to vote for me in order to for the network steward for the DNS project. Let's see, what other things do we need to know about? DNS is going to be connected to your lockbox. So you are going to, when you lock up coins in a stake, then you will be able to register a name and connect it to that stake. The minimum size of the stake is going to vary in order to make sure that we get about one domain registered per hour, so that you don't have somebody coming in registering all the domains in the first 5 minutes and then nobody else can have any fun. The domains are connected to your stake. You don't have to burn anything to get a domain. You just need to maintain that stake for as long as you want to keep the domain. That's going to be the rule. And the minimum size of the stake is, of course, varies depending on how many people want domains. You will be able to move a domain from one stake to another, and you will also be able to sell a domain to somebody else, either by moving it to their stake or by selling it with the stake, because the stakes, the lockups are actually NFTs, so you can sell them. Is there anything else that I'm missing? So the domains that you are all probably registering now, PKT dot whatever, Those domains are going to be domains that you can earn on them as infrastructure. When you do that, if I register cjd.pkt and you stake pkt.net, for instance, then cjd.pkt.net will resolve to my domain. That's how you have people bringing in domains and earning on them as infrastructure. And then you also have people registering domains on the blockchain. Is there anything else? What am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could talk a little bit about the use case, right? So if someone's setting up a website, for instance, in the Packet network, then they're going to be able to use one of these URLs, or basically stake a URL, and that'll give them the ability to build that website, right?
Right. Actually, you'll be able to use these domains anywhere that you would use Namecheap. These are going to just be probably a lot cheaper than using Namecheap. I know that one thing I'm excited about is to be able to grab up a bunch of domains here, rather than every time I want a domain, I have to go and pay like $10, and then it just keeps on billing you every 6 months or every year, another $10. So this is not going to have reoccurring billing. Everybody in the world is going to be able to access these domains because through the stake domains. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be good for if you're hosting in the Packet network, but even if you're hosting outside the Packet network, this is just going to be a great way to register domains.
Yeah, it's cool.
Maybe I think people forget, because they think, well, there's ENS, there's Handshake, there's, if you're old, you even say, well, there's Namecoin, and why is this different? This is different because we're bringing in outside domains, like from regular ICANN, packet dot whatever, and we're bringing those in, and those are going to resolve these domains. So these domains are going to be usable by everybody in the world, not just people that install the special ENS software, the special Handshake software, the special Namecoin software. So these are going to be really usable domains, as opposed to kind of fun to have, but not really that useful. Well, ENS is useful because your name shows up in your wallet, but it's not really useful for running a website.
Right. Yeah, and you've seen unstoppable domains and a couple other unique domain offerings out there. So what would you, if you were to say what makes this unique, what would you say?
What's unique is you register it on the blockchain, and yet it's accessible to the whole world. And that's what's unique. And it's also unique because it has this incredible robustness of the fact that if we get 50 or 100 different top level domains, every single one of them is going to be resolving your domain. So and actually, I'll talk a little bit about bad actors, but if we're talking about the kind of thing where you have a domain and then one day it just disappears and then it's been seized, that's very unlikely here, because you would have to go from one packet.tld to the next, and try to go after each and every one of them, as opposed to what's on. Because the origin of the data is on the blockchain, that can't really be changed.
And is there a limit to the amount of packet that can be staked for a DNS?
No, there's a lower limit, but there's no upper limit. However,
so it has to be a minimum.
There's a minimum, and the minimum is a sliding scale in order to make sure that the average rate of domains registered is about 1 an hour. However, there is a little caveat, which is that if you register a domain with a really big stake, it's going to kind of throw a banana peel under the foot of the next guy, because you're going to set a high bar, and it's only going to reduce by 50% every hour. So you kind of block everybody out for a while if you register with a huge stake. It's not a good idea to register with a really big stake. You want to use kind of the smallest one you can. And I think that what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that you can create the stake at the same time that you register the domain, just so that you'll make the stake be exactly the right size.
Right. And so I guess for I'm sure people are going to ask this question. Let's say that you staked into the liquidity pool. Will you have to add infrastructure to the liquidity stake, or is it only for regular stake?
Okay, so the liquidity pool yields do not require infrastructure. However, LP tokens also generate yield credits. So you're encouraged to run infrastructure so that those yield credits will continue to yield, because they will stop. But the LP yields, the one that yields a lot, that one will continue until 1 year from launch day, when it just stops.
Got it. Okay, so it's a yes and a no, because if you want to continue getting the 4x yields, if you staked for a year, you're going to want to you're going to want to pair with infrastructure. And then I guess my other question is about CJDNS nodes. So there's a maximum amount of packet worth, right? So let's say the CJDNS node, you can only pair with $5,000 worth. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is it at today's value, or is it at the day that you staked it?
When you assign it to the node, to the CJDNS node,
Okay.
that's when that's locked in. And when we say $5,000, we take every yield credit, value that as being equivalent to 1 packet, and that gives you the dollar value of those yield credits. So if you lock up for a year, your dollarized value of yield credits 4x's. So you just have to take that into account when you're thinking about what's going to make me hit that $5,000 limit. So if packet goes up to $1 by the time infrastructure day comes, then that's going to be a very low limit. And if you lock for a year, then that limit is going to be 1/4 of what it would be. But yield credits are what make you yield. So that's really not a problem that it's limited to $5,000 of yield credits, because everybody else is going to have that same limit.
Right. And is there a limit to how many CJDNS nodes you can pair, or is it unlimited?
No, there's no limit. And I'm sure that there's somebody in the world who's going to figure out how to run thousands of them in one room. However, every one of them needs a different IP address. So you do need to, you can't just run them all on one computer. So you can have multiple IPs on one computer, but you need to figure out how to get more than one IP. Which if you're buying like VPSs from a hosting company, you're fine. They give you an IP address for your VPS, but you can't just use one internet connection and run 1,000 CJDNS nodes in virtual machines on a computer. That will not work.
Got it. Okay, well, that's good to know. And so let me sorry for my questions, because I'm figuring that a lot of people are going to ask these. So let's say that you have $10,000 worth of packets staked. You have a CJDNS node and you want to pair it. So you pair it. Then what happens? You have to go and find, get a DNS or do something else to pair and do a double pair to your stake?
So the idea of pairing to a stake isn't exactly how it's going to work, because that would be way too complicated if you have like 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 stakes. What is going to happen is you're going to have all your stakes in the staking tab, and then you're going to go to the infrastructure tab, and it's just going to show your balance of yield credits. And that's the sum of all the yield credits of all your stakes. And then you're going to be able to take those yield credits and assign them to your devices. And there's a limit of yield credits that you can assign based on the $5,000 worth of packet. And you're just going to go through and you're going to have unassigned yield credits. So you'll probably want to run another CJDNS node. Or one thing that you can do is, if you're running a VPN exit, you can also register that same VPN exit as a CJDNS node, because they are both actually CJDNS nodes. So there is kind of a hack there where if you have a VPN exit, you register it as a VPN exit, then you register it as a CJDNS node, or vice versa, it's your choice. But then you have those two pieces of infrastructure, which are both the same thing, and that gets you up to 10,000 on one device.
Great. Or you just go get a DNS and you don't even have to worry about it.
If you have a domain, there's no limit on how many you can register. You can, stake on a domain. And what's cool about a domain is it's kind of virtual infrastructure in that you don't really have to watch over it. You buy it, you pay the fee every year, and you assign it onto somebody else's name server. And then you don't have to maintain the name server. You don't have to maintain, you don't have a computer to maintain. You just let it go. So that domains, I recommend domains to people who are maybe not as technical and would just like to, just have an easy time.
Yeah, I went on to buy one the other day and it said it was like $5. And when I purchased, it said error. This thing is actually $1,400. It was
Oops.
weird. Yeah, it was weird because it said you'll be refunded your $5.
Oh wow! So you even completed the checkout.
I did a checkout. It charged my account, and then I got a receipt, an invoice that said error. This you paid $0. It's actually cost $1,400, and you're gonna be refunded. So that was on name cheap or something, or name, I forget whatever it's called.
That's the one I use.
Name cheap.
So the price of these packet domains is going up.
Look, they're about the cheapest one I think that you're gonna find is around $35.
Okay.
And then it goes all the way up to like there's one I saw for like $10,000 someone was selling.
I think when I registered Packet Cache, it was like $10.
Yeah,
but Packet wasn't a well-known thing back then.
Yeah, people jumped in and bought up a lot of the domains, but yeah, there's still a lot out there. I mean, there's 400 or something. So, that's going to be the wild, wild west, is to get your hands on your domain before the rest of the world does.
Yeah. Oh, so here's another thing. If you are the owner of a domain like pkt.cache, there will be certain packet domains that are going to be registered, and they're going to be your choice what you want them to point to point. So for example, www, that's a domain that we're going to just pre-register, and then we're going to allow the holders of the top domain, the packet dot whatever domain, the one that are earning, they're going to be allowed to do whatever they want with that. Because www.packet.cache is something that normally that shouldn't be something somebody else is registering. That should just be packet.cache. So there's going to be a handful of those. If I'm open to recommendations of other ones that really should be. Definitely NS1, NS2, the name servers. Those need to be for technical reasons. www makes perfect sense that it should be. Maybe like mail also would be one, because people like to run mail servers. But there's going to be a short list of domains that are registered and then given out to the community, so that the owners of the staking domain have their discretion of what they want to do with those.
Great. Yeah.
I was going to ask a question, Caleb, about the, two different types of function between the domain and then the DNS or the name server. That was like, those are two separate infrastructure nodes.
Indeed. So the way DNS works is that when you say, where's Google, your computer talks to a name server, and that's an actual computer. But the name server isn't the same thing as the domain. The domain is like, it's an entry in a database somewhere that says, Jeremy owns Packet, whatever. The name server is an actual computer a server that is somewhere and it's answering whenever somebody says, where's Google, where's packet.cache, whatever. And so we need both, but not every person who has a domain needs to have a name server. There can be one name server that answers for numerous domains. And there can even be one domain that points to multiple name servers, and that's an encouraged thing to do. That might not be supported in the first iteration of the tech because it's a little more complex. But that's so the name server is something that needs to be run by somebody with a little more technical acumen and ability to be able to watch over it, because it is something that can fail. A domain can't really fail. You point it to a functioning name server and you walk away, and that domain just works. There's no such thing as downtime unless it gets seized or something. But the name server is a computer. It has to be alive and internet connected all the time. And if it's down for a little bit, then that is a problem. People are not able to resolve any of the subdomains under that name server. So I hope that clears up the difference between the two a little bit.
Yeah, there was one other piece to it, which was like geographical registrar diversity.
Yeah. Right. Registrar diversity is for domains. And that's just because we don't want all the eggs in one basket. We want to make it a little hard for the guys who like to seize domains by putting the packet domains at different registrars. So like Namecheap or GoDaddy or Gandhi or whatever those are. And then at the same time, we also want those to be in different countries, because different countries involves more jurisdictions, which makes it more difficult to take the whole thing down. It's just, about robustness.
Yeah.
We should probably talk about bad actors, because while we do want to be robust, we don't want to end up swimming in cyber criminals.
Sure.
And the answer that we have at this moment for that is there's a blacklist. The blacklist, it just is a list of packet domains, so cgd.packet, that we allow the name servers to not resolve if they don't want to. So we're not even saying that if you're on the blacklist, we're not really forbidding name servers from resolving your domain. We're just saying that if they choose not to, that's okay, and we're not going to take away their yields and consider them a non-functioning device. And that's just really as something we will handle internally to deal with if we've got issues that we think are going to cause real problems for the name server operators or something like that. And once we get a robust governance system, then this is going to be one of the mandates of that government, the packet government. But for now, I'm gonna make the list, and it'll work like that. As per, it'll be the role of the executor. When the executor is voted, then it will be something that the new executor will be able to manage. But these types of jobs, there aren't really that many people qualified to do them to begin with, and so it's really just mechanical work.
Yeah, it's interesting because in any kind of decentralized approach, you end up with some semblance of like necessary centralization, I guess, or it kind of resolves to similar governance systems, so it's good to have diversity in that government, if you will, and a system that people can participate in.
Yep, and we have to do this, because if we don't do this, we would end up where Namecoin is, where nobody would be really willing to run a server that resolves Namecoin names, because that there's going to be like 1% or less than 1% out there that's going to get you into a lot of hot water, because when you actually register a domain, you have to put your name down, and that's you. So we don't want to put the people staking domains under that kind of pressure that they have to resolve these domains that have been registered by anonymous internet people, and they're the one who's going to take the responsibility, or else they stop yielding. That's not the right course of action for this young project.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the other things, people have been talking about in some of the chats is around, how advantageous the yields, have been, but then also seeing them kind of taper, not dramatically, but you see them come down, 0.5% or percent, every other day or every 3 days. But what will be interesting is the deck will get reshuffled come infrastructure day, because the yields will be high for the next 56, 57 days. But come infrastructure day, people are going to actually need to run infrastructure. So all of a sudden you're going to have a lot of people get knocked off their yields for not, doing the infrastructure side of the project.
The people who have everything taken care of on infrastructure day, like if you have a domain, then you're set. The people who have everything taken care of, they're going to be set. The people who, I think it's going to come as a surprise to some people, and even though we talk about it all the time. I think that there will be a little, you're right, there's going to be another bump in the yields for people who have their ducks in a row.
Yeah. Also, one of the other things that was mentioned is the kind of the SLA of a node. And if your uptime is poor, or if you're not consistent, then your yields get penalized.
Yields go down as, if I'm remembering correctly, the square of the downtime. So or the square root of the uptime, that might be it. So it's a curve. It just does this. So you really don't want to be down here. I think at 80% uptime, you got 50% yields, and at 50% uptime, you get about 25% yields. So you really need to keep it up in 99s.
Yeah, that's what I think was cool. Well, it'll be interesting to see how people approach this, right? So if you're running, let's say, a CJDNS node on a laptop that you use for work, and you have to turn it off and go to work, then you're going to be down for a period of time. So it's going to impact your yields off of that device because it's not running 100% of the time. So trying to create dedicated devices, or as you mentioned, like a VPS that's running 24/7, so that you're going to have the high quality uptime, you're going to get in that top echelon of the reward tier. I think that'll be something that people look towards. It'll also create a cool opportunity for the rowdy customers, and for the Pack-a-Pal customers that have these devices that will just run 24/7. It's a dedicated device that will run your CJDNS node, or your VPN allocation, so that people can aren't relying on their home processing computer or work processing computer as a consistent state for the network.
I would definitely recommend using devices that are meant to be on all the time. It just doesn't make sense to get your yield slashed because you turn a device off.
Hey, Caleb, we got a question here. I put it up on the screen from Castiel. Maybe you want to address that.
So what will happen is you will enter the IP6 address of your CJDNS node onto the platform, and then on your CJDNS node, you will somehow indicate that the platform, that your address on the platform is authorized to control that, to stake to that CJDNS node, and then we'll connect it together.
Got it. So it'll be a pairing process. You're basically pairing the stake. Not only are you pairing the stake, but then you're pairing the yield credits with the stake. And that'll be the key, because some people have a lot of yield credits. Like, let's say you stake 100,000 packet for a year, right? So that 100,000 packet is a 4x yield. So you're gonna have 400,000 yield credits. So then you basically are assigning 400,000 yield credits to a node. But the one caveat is that there will be a threshold, right? So if you end up, let's say, we can just run the number here, 400,000. So if packet goes up to 1.25 pennies, then you would be able to assign all 400,000 yield credits to one CJDNS node. But if packet goes up to 2 pennies, then that 400,000 yield credits is more than $5,000. So under that circumstance, you're going to need 2 CJDNS nodes, one for the first $5,000 and then one for the rollover, if you will, of that $5,000 limit.
Yeah, or you set one up as a VPN, and then you can register it twice. You register it as both. If you bother to buy something that's at a data center, it makes a lot of sense to
run a VPN.
Yeah, I got a question. Can you like, let's say you have a DNS, can you do multiple stakes to it, or is it a 1-to-1 only?
So there is no direct link between the stakes and the nodes, because otherwise it's too complicated for you. So what happens is you create all your stakes, and then you go to the infrastructure tab, and it just shows you a balance of all your yield credits, and then you just assign yield credits. That's all you do.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, I was worried about that because, in the beginning, testing it out, like, you do a small amount here, but then you're like, oh, wow, okay, then I try a little bit more and then a little bit more. And then, next thing you know, you have 10 stakes, and then you're like, oh, I want to do liquidity staking. And then now you have all these stakes. It's like one to here, one to here, one here. So it's cool that it aggregates them all together. And then it's just one
assignment.
One assignment. Yeah, that's great.
It's just way easier that way.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is a cool system. I've had a lot of fun messing around with the dashboard, and that was kind of always the thing that the community's been talking about for so long, is just like a dashboard. I know people really wanted Packeteer OS to be applicable to community miners, even though that was never the utility of that dashboard. So this one definitely gives a lot of people the ability to participate now. And I was talking to a really, really early community member. I mean, legacy miner who had been just asleep, like had an early device, mined a lot. I think he had like 1.5 million packets. So it wasn't crazy, but he mined it really fast back in the day. And then it's just been sitting there for 4 years, and all of a sudden this guy's, excited. He set up he claimed his airdrop and then did a stake and then got really excited, called me back a couple of days later. He's like, hey, I want to stake the liquidity pool, brought in Ethereum and then got some instruction on how to get into the pool. And then, it's like figuring out, what he can do to maximize his yields. And then obviously letting him know that he's going to have to, the infrastructure is going to be the next piece. So this will last, as is until end of October, but then he's going to have to come in with the next approach. But he was just saying how excited he was with just how it inspired him to get proactive. And I think, yes, proactive with the coins that you've been holding on to, and they've just been sitting there with, nothing you can do with them. So I think that's the first part. But the second part that people will start saying in 2 months is how it gets them proactive with building actual infrastructure for the network, right? One of the questions that I've had a couple of people bring up, though, is the kind of low bandwidth nature of CJDNS nodes. So how will the network end up being robust if the CJDNS nodes don't have like a limit, a bandwidth requirement, right? And some of them are, you might end up with a lot of nodes on the network, but how do you get the kind of the throughput of a high-speed network?
So yeah, great question. And CJDNS doesn't have to be low bandwidth, but we didn't put bandwidth as one of the requirements in order to yield. However, and this gets back to the future of governance and the voting system and being able to take charge of our destiny, is that we can actually change a lot of these things, because the rules for how the infrastructure needs to work These are all rules that are implemented by the executor, and the executor really works for the people, for the holders of packet. So this is something that in the future we might say, you know what, we actually want to change the rules of a little bit on CJDNS nodes, and we want to put some minimum there, or we want to put another tier of how fast it should be, and that's something that the only thing that we need is community consensus. There's nothing technical stopping us from changing the rules. We just need to really get everybody comfortable, primarily the holders comfortable with the idea of taking a different direction. And then once we have that comfort level, that's something that we can do. And that also gets back to, people have talked about the third airdrop and whether we can have that. That's something that in particular would require going to yet another token. Yeah. So that's not going to happen in the short term. But if you imagine, like, for example, let's say 2 years down the road, we find that Base isn't where it's at anymore, and everybody's on Solana or something like that. The idea that we can just pack our bags and move that's a relatively new realization in the blockchain world, and projects have started to do that, and now we've done it, and it basically works. You're not trapped in a project for the rest of your life, as many of us thought in the previous decade with this technology. So if we were to move to another platform, that would be a time that we would be able to bring up really fundamental things that would require redoing the contracts, like the third airdrop, etc.
Well, I think go for it.
I was going to say, one of the issues with this project and how it's been set up, though, is the liquidity providers and the lockbox. And so in moving, you have these people that are locked into an LP with real money, real Ethereum and real packets. So it's like you can't just kind of as easily just pick up and move to the next place because of that legacy element that's locked in and people yielding for a long period of time. So it would take a lot longer to be able to clip new liquidity stakes and then let them all unlock at some point and then do it at the end. That's probably how you would end up approaching it if that was something that the project ended up requiring. But I think that's also maybe one of the most novel aspects of the way Packet on Base is designed right now, is the crowdfunding of liquidity. And it's also maybe one of the most exciting pieces of the story, because I'm seeing a lot of people even just jumping in with small amounts, just point.
I love
Ethereum,
I love just going to Dex Screener and sorting by only the ads or the adds and removes, and just seeing, like, every day you've got 20 little ads. I think people are claiming their airdrops, and then they're like, you know what, the best way to yield is I'm just going to take Ethereum and I'm going to do an ad, and they add, and that's going to make a liquidity pool that's so robust. The project's going to be, it's going to be impossible for this project to, have any liquidity problems in the long term.
Yeah. Go for it, Jay.
I just wanted to say two things. First thing was about doing this, the third airdrop. For all people who, obviously everybody is affected by it. And so I think it's important that, like, even the legacy, community members that were here in the very, very beginning, before there was even a X account or Twitter or YouTube or anything, like, every single person is affected by it. So it's not like just, certain community members that, got the haircut. It's everybody. So that's important to note. But also, like, the yields right now are so lucrative that, like, if you go and take all the packet that you currently got and you stake it, within the next 6 months, potentially, depending on how much you stake, you could earn back all the, haircutted packet. Also, if you add liquidity, you could earn it back even faster. And so I think it's important that people realize that, like, hey, yeah, it sucks, but go and, take take this opportunity and, start yielding, and then you won't even worry about it. And also it yeah, it's a bummer, but it also means that there's less tokens in the ecosystem, which means that the chances of the coin going higher in price is much greater.
Yeah.
$1.30.
Actually, $1.30. It's kind of that's a funny meme. I was talking to another community member who's initially really upset about the third airdrop and expressed that to me. And I told him that he should go buy his second airdrop as an advance to himself and go stake it into the liquidity pool with some ETH on the other side. Basically, give yourself a loan until you get your second airdrop, yield for the next 6 months. And between your first airdrop and your second airdrop yielding, you'll make back your third airdrop before you would get the third airdrop. And he was like upset about it. He didn't want to hear it. He called me yesterday. He told me that he did it. And he was like calculating his yields. He's like, even if this thing was to drop off by like 75% by the time I get to the third airdrop, I'll have more packet than I started with all 3 airdrops. So he like thanked me for that advice. Look, I mean, obviously if everyone does it, then it's probably gonna limit what everyone can accomplish. Yeah. But yeah, just go do it. Like, give yourself a loan, and because of the low price of packet, that's the other thing that you got to remember is that in 6 months, I mean, look, no one can predict this future, right? But with the trend that I've seen and how excited people are about this dashboard and the conversations that I'm having with high net worth, some institutional capital, and just some like straight up, shitcoiners who just want to make money. There is like a general consensus about the excitement of this, and especially of the dashboard. And so, yeah, you can go buy, like if you had like, let's say 3 million packet, which at one point was a ton. I mean, that's $150,000 at the height of the packet market, right? So, people felt a strong affinity to their 3 million packet that they spent 150 grand on, or 250 grand on 5 million packet. So now you lost 1 million of that. Well, you can buy a million packet right now for $1,000. So for $1,000 loan to yourself and have that yield out for the next year, especially if you put $1,000 worth of ETH on the other side of that, you're going to end up with way more than a million packet at the end of the year, and also, a lot more.
There isn't that much risk in the LP because, yeah, I mean, half of it's packet and half of it's ETH. And if you consider ETH to be like cash, then it's like half of that is just you're putting cash on aside. And the only way that you can use that cash, there's 2 ways. If the price of packet goes wildly up, then the packet that's underneath your LP tokens will be sold out. And you'll end up with a lot of ETH, but not as much. You won't get the price participation that you would if you held packet. So don't put every last packet into the LP. But the other possibility is if packet were to go to like 0, which, I mean, let's be honest, it already did. So there isn't really any further down that it can go. I mean, you can't predict the future, but it's so far down that I would not personally be that concerned about it going down. And if it goes down, like what, then you own all 6 billion packet. Like, it doesn't make that much sense that would happen. But really the only thing you have to worry about with the LP is that the price moons and you don't get the price participation on the packet side because it gets sold out. But the answer to that is only stake half your packet in the LP, yield on that half, and keep your other half to participate if the price goes up to $1.
Yeah, that's a good point, because if you put, let's say, a third of your packet into the LP and the price heads back up towards all-time high, then your packet's going to get sold out. So that third is essentially going to be vanquished, if you will, into the into the community buyers. But you're also yielding out really healthy, and I've seen we were running some calculations where the APY was like multi hundreds of percentages.
That's like
And
500% or something.
yeah, like 500 or 600%. So I mean, your million, like using that million token example, if that APY ends up being hundreds of percent, then yeah, you're going to end up with more than you even started with an LP. So even if it does get completely sold out, the yields are going to exceed what your principal balance was anyway. So even though, yeah, when you pull out the LP at the end of the whatever your staking term is, and you end up with just all ETH,
yeah,
you're going to have received so many rewards over that time period that you don't really care the principal being in ETH, because you ended up making a lot in packet just on yield. Plus, the yields that you make, obviously those are free standings or accessible. So you're able to
deposit it into your wallet every day, every
right,
couple
that's what I mean. So
every hour or something.
Yeah, every few hours or whatever. So you can just be selling that if that's what you want to end up selling, and you're like, hey, I don't want to miss the price rise if I need to sell. Well, you can just sell what you're earning.
Yeah. Hey, Jess, do you want to answer this question from Castiel?
Let me see.
It basically is BIO will be a packet product or a rowdy product. Based on the details, it looks like it will be a direct competitor to Theta or AOS.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the network itself. So everything we've been talking about right now is the infrastructure, and that's really been what Packet has been geared towards for the last 5 years. It was always just infrastructure. I think people who really loved, I mean, look, I really loved mining. I remember evangelizing this greatly all over the world, sitting with people in their living room, having them go to OVH or Hetzner, get a server. A couple people get a server, then get kicked off, get basically punted and have their money sent back to them. But get a server, set them up a wallet, install Packet Crypt, get them mining, get them yielding, get them excited. And that was a really fun piece of the story. And I remember people's just eyes glowing around, watching their wallet balance going up. And I just knew that was just watching non-technical people go install stuff in their command line. Like I was like, okay, we're on to something here. This is really cool. But we ultimately realized that announcement mining itself, even while we know that the Packet Crypt mining algorithm uses the same encryption as VPN, and that was purposeful on Caleb's part, and it was meant to have the ability for that to be used in a unique way. It never happened, never materialized, and people really didn't care about the network. But community miners just did the absolute bare minimum to make the most amount that they can make. So building up the network was never really part of it. Now it's incumbent that you're building, come infrastructure day, it's incumbent that you build up the network. That's the whole point. And it's not just as a CJDNS node, but there's these other parts of it. We didn't talk about the route server, but the route server is going to be one category of yields that it requires you to run all 4 other different types of infrastructure nodes as well. So people will be economically incentivized to provide infrastructure. But then what are we doing here? Because if you have a bunch of people yielding and earning the tokens, then what's the utility for it other than now staking? So you have people buying to stake. That's cool. We're going to see the price move just because people are coming in to acquire positions to stake and earn. And that's great. That's one of the first, basically arguably one of the first times that the Packet has had a utility since this started. And we've been messing around with other utility, for instance, paying for VPN, which is you can do in the Android app, but it just never really materialized, and the UI UX is not that great. So, and the demand just hasn't been there yet. So what Kaziziel is talking about here is actual utility use cases. So BIA is a brainchild of myself, Josh, and it's been something that I've been thinking about going back to 2016, 2017. And it's not a Packet product, and it's not a rowdy product. It's a completely separate entity that will have its own, interested partners and investors that will be involved in that particular vertical and that particular utility for PKT. But the macro vision is for, and this is what I think is really exciting, is that people can be passive infrastructure providers, even nominal, right? You don't need to be like super robust infrastructure provider, but just because of the example I used where people were motivated to set up, packet crypt miners, which had very minimal utility as far as infrastructure goes. The goal will be having people motivated to set up CJDNS nodes and having those earn. And then with the packet that they're earning, that they can reuse that packet to pay for content, media subscriptions. It could be as something as simple as like a Patreon type thing where they're just like paying their favorite creator. But it creates all these different like actual utilities for the token itself. In the case of BIA, like the vision of BIA is a YouTube, sorry, not YouTube, iTunes competitor. But iTunes will always be iTunes. Like iTunes is always going to be backed by a $3 trillion media behemoth, right? In Apple. Like that's not going to change. But what I think is really interesting is a iTunes that lowers the barrier to entry for people to get access to distribution, because the way that iTunes works today is that if you want to distribute on iTunes, you can't. You have to go through a third-party aggregator who's like a preferred provider to Apple. Then they can put your product onto the iTunes, store. And everyone wants to be there. And it is important for there to be curation. And that's how Apple prevents from the type of, low quality fare that ends up on YouTube ending up on iTunes. Because everyone who makes a movie or a TV show thinks that it's a masterpiece and wants to make, millions of dollars. That's a fact. Everyone, it's like every mother's son is handsome. It's just the same thing with media. But the reality is that the majority of media content is really poor production value, really poor quality. Bless all these filmmaker and content creators' hearts, but it's just true. A lot of it's unwatchable. And by the way, there's a lot of stuff on Netflix that's unwatchable, and a lot of stuff even on iTunes that's unwatchable. But you still need that kind of curation. So the vision behind BIA is to create a crowdsourced curation mechanism that can help deliver premium quality content onto the BIA platform, and for BIA users to also be remunerated as essentially passive infrastructure providers, where they're earning and then can reuse what they earn to pay for content. And that's just one vision. It's one vertical, one use case for the network that I'm personally motivated and excited about. And I know that it brings a value into the entertainment industry that's like desperately needed in terms of the entertainment side of the world. Like Hollywood went on strike last year for an extended period of time because of these injustices around revenue and around royalties and around transparency. And even though there was agreements reached with the major guilds to resume operations, everyone knows that it's like nominal in how it's going to change people's paychecks. Like you're still getting the short end of the stick as a content creator and as a net profit participant, because there's still no transparency. And there's also no incentive for these major media companies to provide transparency. It's like they don't really care. They're so dominant as incumbents that's like they just don't need to really change their ways. And that's fine, by the way. A lot of my friends don't necessarily want things to change either. They're the guys getting, once you're the person getting the money from the big company, like you're fine. You're dialed in. You have a flow of capital. You're a premium content provider for them. They'll pay you millions of dollars to bring them new product, and you get paid to make and do your creative work. And that's great for those people. But it's just such an upper echelon. Like it's such a, 1% of 1% of people that get that job. And there's so many incredibly talented people out there and, that aren't getting that money. And there's also a lot of really good quality product that literally just can't get distribution, or really good quality product that does get distribution and then they never get their money back because they get fleeced by the creative Hollywood accounting. So the vision of BIA is literally to utilize the transparency of smart contracts and blockchain technology to process payments. It's nothing like incredibly novel, but in moving over to the Ethereum blockchain and base, we now have access to smart contracts, which enables kind of this very stripped down way of programmatic enabling programmatic payments. And if people can make money providing infrastructure, which we've now proven is pretty exciting with just in the last 2 weeks with what Packet's doing on base, and then you give people something they can do with what they're earning, people are going to use those tokens for things that they want. It's just a fact. Now, the thing that you want could be as simple as just cashing out and subsidizing your Amazon Prime subscription or subsidizing your Netflix subscription. Like if you pay $22 a month for Netflix and you can make $2.50 being an infrastructure provider in the Packet network, that's a 10% lifetime discount to your Netflix. It's not going to change your life, but 10% is 10%. I'll take a 10% discount. In fact, I'll give you an example. T-Mobile in America has an offer where if you're a T-Mobile customer, you can move your Netflix bill to your T-Mobile bill. And your $22 Netflix bill is now $16. It's a $6-7 a month savings. But you're going to get on the phone with T-Mobile and you're going to spend 30 minutes getting that bill moved over to save yourself $6-7 a month for the rest of your life with Netflix. And people will take those types of, micro actions. So what action would you take if you could make, an extra $4 or $10 off, or in the case of Packet, by being an early adopter, potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars in upside that could pay for all your media subscriptions and, and more into the future. I think people are going to take that action. So that's the vision, is not just to bring BIA to the Packet network as a kind of beacon project, but hopefully also to inspire a lot of copycat projects and copycat industries. I mean, we're talking to another project that's doing what I'm wanting to do with movies and media for music. They're basically like a Spotify competitor that offers like a really, really high CPM. I mean, whereas like Spotify offers fractions of a penny per play, like they're offering closer to a penny. And so it's like that using blockchain technology. So that's just showing like there's the opportunity for innovation, and if people can earn by being infrastructure providers and then repurpose that earning into the content that they like to consume, then I think that that's pretty innovative utility for Packet.
For an OG Packeteer asking like, what's this about media and content? What I would say is this is an application. People didn't buy, in the 90s, people didn't buy PCs, they bought Excel. And the PC was the medium for Excel to be able to use Excel. One thing that we didn't have early on in this project was a convincing application that the average person needs. And now we're putting together the infrastructure, we're going to have the VPNs, we're going to have the servers, all that stuff. And this is going to provide an application that the average person is going to want to participate in the Packet project as a user.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. There's not a single Packet OG who has spent any time building in the CJDNS network. There's some people who have set up some CJDNS nodes, and bless those people's hearts. There's maybe I could count them on one hand probably, but nobody's built websites, applications, platforms, any types of utility within the packet network. So it's like, if you're a packet OG, if you want to say you're like a packet maximalist, right? Then what are you actually doing right now besides like mining the proof of work? You're not actually doing anything on the network side or the utility side. So the whole vision of refocusing on media is because like that's a real wide catch-all. We were using the buzzword decentralized web for about a year and a half. It attracted this many people into the project because it's so esoteric of what that means and how people can take action with the decentralized web. But when you talk about media, that's like such a broad range of things that you would do on the decentralized web, which is like blogs, publishing, music, video. There's just all of a sudden all these use cases. E-commerce, by the way, while it might not be media in that sense, we envision that the packet network can be used for a wide range of e-commerce use cases, right? So we'll ultimately see a full category hopefully evolve in that realm as well. But that gives a huge range of use cases for the network, and to inspire people to come and use the network. Maybe we'll have to retool the messaging when there becomes a whole e-commerce use case and it's not just, a media network. But right now it makes a lot of sense to talk about that because right out of the gate, like immediately when we were just at a conference and in Nashville at the Bitcoin conference, and we were talking to Rumble. And so it's just like having the conversation about media. They were just like, oh, well, we have all this infrastructure and, we're doing all this live streaming. We're like the Twitch competitor. Like we should have a Rumble shingle within the packet network. It's like, yes, you should. As we started talking about BIA on the film and entertainment side, then we started getting connected with people on the music side. And there's a project that I'm really fond of called Tune FM. And Audius is another one that I've been a big fan of for a long time. And it's like, they should have a shingle in the world of PKT. And so it's like, all of a sudden you have these people coming in. It's funny to hear like anyone calling themselves like a packet OG or packet maximalist that would push back on utility, because like we know that utility and token velocity is ultimately what brings value to networks, right? Also, a lot of people who were really big fans of the idea of token strike believed in that project, and I'm just speaking for kind of widely and broadly, believed in that project because the belief was that a lot of people would come and set up their own blockchains within the network. And we were talking about this a long time ago. I mean, mind you, we were talking about this before, Solana shitcoins were a thing. And so arguably, if Token Strike had been built by the first people that we did contracts with that literally dropped the ball, there's like 3 people I can, count off right here, put them on blast for failing to deliver. If they had done that, maybe Packet could have been the new Solana. It could have happened, right? But we never had motivated developers building on the roadmap in this project. It's just unfortunate. It never happened. I'm not going to blame anyone, just the way it shook out, right? No one really got inspired. Maybe it was too complicated. Maybe they didn't have the resources, whatever the reason. It just never happened. And so the result was we never got to kind of attract these like low barrier to entry projects just populating on the network. And you look at something like Solana now, Pump Fun and Moonshot and 17,000 new tokens getting made a day, right? And that's incredible. I mean, that's where you're seeing like just massive volume on that network, massive TLV, right? And that, Packet could have gotten a piece of that. Even a fraction of that would have been a massive boon for market cap and the awareness for the project. Never happened. So where that would have required unbelievable amounts of development, we've always had really, really like rudimentary wallet technology at Packet. It's just the way it is. A UXTO blockchain, it's been harder for us to evolve. We've been working nonstop on Lightning for what, Caleb, almost 5 years now. And we just never could get Lightning to be successful in an iOS device. We just could not get it. We put a lot of money into that and just could not get it. And people, have worked on wallets. There's been numerous people who are in the community, people who aren't in the community have worked on wallets, and none of the wallets, including the one that we did with Anode wallet, ever came out as good as even some of the worst wallets on other blockchain projects or other EVM projects. So because we haven't had NFT support, because we haven't had smart contract support, because we haven't had really good wallets, because we haven't had token strike, it's like this, series of unfortunate events that led us to just not having the things that we need. How do you attract a lot of people into this network? How do you get a lot of utility? And that's when the light bulb went off. And it's like, it's always been CJDNS. It was always CJDNS. From the beginning, it was CJDNS. And I've actually commiserated on this, that like one of my biggest frustrations is when the community was just ripping with, thousands of people and thousands of miners. If we had been beating the drum about CJDNS, which existed back then, you would have probably gotten a bunch of people running CJDNS nodes and a bunch of websites built in CJDNS and a lot of like stuff happening back then, but nobody was thinking about it. Everyone was just thinking about mining. And so that's why I've been just like focused on CJDNS and this network, because that's where we're going to draw people in, making it easy for people to build websites. Now and by the way, we've been beating that drum about building websites in the Packet network for over a year now. Nobody's done it. Nobody. There's nobody. And there's a couple of people who are trying, but nobody's done it. So now with Packet on Base, you're literally required to do it if you want to get the yields. Like you have to build a CJDNS node. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be someone who's going to make a really cool CJDNS implementation. It's like, we need the Kuzu version of, Packet on Base to come in and make like a really dope, watcher style app for running a CJDNS node. And it's going to be a flip of a switch, and that's going to happen. And then you're going to pair it with your stake, and it's going to be dope. That's where this goes. And then it's going to be easier deployments of websites, something with a sexy UI that just like makes it really easy to get your website up. And then you're going to get all these different copycat projects, or blogs or publishers or e-commerce stores, or just like people just setting up a shingle for their website, chiropractors and, doctors, whatever, that are just going to set up their stuff here because it's cool. And that's going to be the adoption. But here's the key. They're now infrastructure providers and they're earning. And then, that doctor who has a website for his chiropractic practice, is earning a little bit of Packet into his wallet. And he's like, oh, what do I do with this? He can go to BIA and he can buy something, or he can cash out and subsidize his Netflix bill or subsidize his Amazon Prime bill. And all of a sudden you have this token velocity and this utility for the token that never existed in the layer one. So that's why this is happening. That's why I'm really passionate about this direction. And media is just a narrative that I'm an expert in. So I can talk about it and I can bring people in. I can usher people in through that category. But, since the network is truly decentralized global mesh network, hopefully there's people that will cordon off parts of that narrative that they're experts in, and they'll become evangelists in, and they'll be the, e-commerce mavens, or, the, ISP mavens, or whatever category, and how they view a use case for the network. There's going to be a lot of different people, representing that corner of this network. So that's why we're taking on that narrative, because I'm really equipped to speak about it. But I truly hope that we see a lot of factions develop, because the network is like limitless and a blank canvas for how people want to proceed with it.
Yeah, nicely done. I mean, look, it's go time. This is what we've always wanted, is to have a place where people could build. Unfortunately, we it's harder for people to build on a layer one the way that it was set up. And so now people can build anything they want. You have a business, build it. You have, you know, the next TikTok or Twitch or Twitter or whatever, build it, you know, and host it on a decentralized platform and earn yields and get paid and get paid for it. So that's the
and get .pkt URLs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's so rad to have a network. I mean, there's no other projects that I'm aware of that have a network with a built-in DNS system. There's other people messing around in, you know, their own flavor of DNS, but it's like, this is an actual pure play mesh network that has its own DNS. And that's an incredibly powerful thing with programmatic money. Like you can literally program money in that network. It's got its own payment rails. So it's like, that was always the vision, was a network with integrated payment rails with programmatic money. Like that was the original reason that we went out and looked for Caleb, and, you know, was to build this right here. We just were been beating our head against a wall trying to get it built.
It wasn't even there, you know, DeFi wasn't around when you guys were out looking, you know. So look, you gotta move with the times, you know. Totally. And if you don't move with the times, you're gonna be left in the dust. And yeah, it may, you know, people can be, it can be scary to change. And you know, we're 2 weeks into this thing, and there's a lot of people that are frustrated, and, you know, understandably so. It probably came as a shock, even though we tried our best to kind of like hint at what was happening and be transparent with the you know, different spaces that we held, you know, showing all the different infrastructure and the, you know, the mascot. And that's the thing, like people are like, it's a meme project, and this is more than a meme. And that's kind of the concept, is like, this is way more than a meme. If anything, we're just using meme culture to tell the story. And instead of, you know, Jesse, Caleb, Josh, myself, or anyone jumping in front of, you know, to try to tell this story, it's a lot easier to digest it when it's a character. And we're all packeteers. And that's the thing about packeteers. He's not just one person, he's everybody. And it's our battle against the suits. Now we have a story to tell, and we have a way for people to earn fairly. You know, before, you know, the pools took all your yields. I don't know if you've been yielding in the last year, you're not yielding much. And if you are yielding much, you're paying for it. And the cost of those tokens can't be sold, or coins can't be sold for as much as you're paying for them on the market. We've seen the markets in a downward decline for the last 2 years. And so finally, we fixed that glitch and gave the power back to the people, so that people can be earning fairly and get yields like they should be, instead of all those yields going to centralized pool infrastructures that are not building the network. They're literally hosting a blockchain that ultimately doesn't build the network. So now we're building the network. People can earn fairly. And if you're sleeping on this, I don't know what to tell you. It's like you're asleep at the wheel. It's like, I just don't, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's like,
look, and do both. I mean, look,
do both. I mean, that's the cool part, is now you have 2 projects to follow. If you're really excited about mining, keep mining and follow PKTC. If you want to build the packet network, Packing on Base is where that's happening.
So sure. Remember, you got to vote for me before next Wednesday, 1 week from today, because that's when it's going to activate, and that's when we're going to lock in the list of people who get early access. Right?
Cool.
Only coins count for voting.
Oh, yeah. One thing that you need to bring up that you were mentioning is that because when you do your stake, it actually has a little voting field, right? But you only need to vote
on one
vote per wallet, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a dozen different stakes, just pick a big one and vote. The only case where it matters with multiple stakes is if you vote for different things in different stakes, and then it will take the biggest one, because you only vote one vote per address. Now, if you want early access to DNS, you got to vote. before next week, 1 week from today. That's when that's going to kick in. And here's one thing that I'll do, because you reminded me about that CJDNS can use the same algorithm from PacketCrypt. So I will take 1 million packet of network steward funds and offer to buy out anybody's GPU miner if it exists, because I understand those aren't going to be worth much anymore. And it'll be your last 1 million packet that you'll get from your GPU miner, and I'll buy it out with network steward coins in order to open source it so that it can be used to the CDNS VPN code.
Okay.
There you go.
You
There you go. Any takers, hop on.
Yeah, you should raise the number on that, because 1 million packet, you can buy 1 million packet of PKT C right now for like $200. So
I'll give you 1 million packet of the real deal for your GPU code.
Oh, of packet on base. Yeah.
Right. That's going to be the last 1 million packet that you earn off that GPU code.
Yeah.
And I'll open source it for CJDNS so that everybody can have a GPU.
Look, Caleb got punted by the internet gods. I would say, look, I think there's going to be purists on the PKT C side of things, and I think that if somebody was to come in with a few $1 million worth of development dollars to do wallets and infrastructure and liquidity provision, you could get that somewhere. But that would be incumbent for somebody to do that dev work, and it's probably about 1.5 years of work to do. So yeah, I would just say, like, if you believe in it, that's totally cool, and just don't sleep on high yields in the interim period. But yeah, finish what you're going to say, Caleb, about the GPU.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll buy your GPU code. I think I'm getting a denial of service attack or something every time I talk shit. No, I'm on video.
Oh, sorry.
You're on video. every time I'm getting denial of service attack here. I'm gonna have to change my IP address in my home router.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
this is where it's going. You guys can like what I did in the past, and I'm glad you like what I did in the past. But that's the past, and this is the future. So you're just gonna, sooner or later, you're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, I also think that the wallets are what wins. I think that Solana won off of its wallets. I think that was where
Phantom wallet. Oh yeah, Phantom too.
And Soulflare are such good wallets. I also think Cosmos wins. I think their wallets have been exceptionally good. I mean, I don't think they are quite as good as
MetaMask is MetaMask and Coinbase. It's like those. Yeah. It's like, why even compete with those wallets if you can use them? Why not?
Yeah. So I was going to say, it's like MetaMask. Like when I was I was in, where was I? Was I in Nashville? I think I was in No, it was in Consensus, and I ended up meeting Joe Lubin, and I had no idea that he was one of the creators of MetaMask. He was mentioned that. I was just like, wait a minute, you created MetaMask? But MetaMask, obviously one of the Ethereum founders. It's like the legacy tech. It's like the most robust tech in all of blockchain, arguably, right? And so that's been one of the most powerful tools to take Ethereum to a $500 billion market cap, right? And Bitcoin's, will always be dominant. Obviously it's the UXTO blockchain, we get that. But the wallets, and there are some really good wallets. Edge Wallet's an unbelievable wallet for Bitcoin. There's no question about it. And we're starting to see some Lightning stuff emerge. Slowly but surely, starting to see some adoption. I just saw an announcement, something about how Apple's incorporating Bitcoin payments, and so Lightning is going to get somewhere eventually for sure. But Bitcoin's always just going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be unique in its use case. No one's really going out and spending Bitcoin to buy coffee. Like, that's just not really a use case for your Bitcoin. But where this goes is like using that kind of infrastructure, like the really, really good wallets, to try and build a wallet that competes with the Coinbase wallet or the MetaMask wallet. Like, you better have millions. There's no one out there who's just going to build a Coinbase wallet or a MetaMask wallet competitor in their garage for, 10 grand. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Even 150 grand.
Even $15 million. Like, you're just not going to get there. I've seen, Mihao and those guys, they were very well funded with millions and millions of dollars. They couldn't get a wallet that was comparable to any of this stuff. And they had all the runway, and it's just really hard. It's really hard to win in the wallet world. And so, yeah, that's why for us was like, let's just make it easy for people to get access to it, to swap it, access to DeFi, the best wallets. How many people we've just been dealing with this over the last 2 weeks, just losing their passwords, just the simple UI and UX of like setting up a wallet and making people remember their passwords. So much care and detail goes in that. And we actually tried it. We did the best that we could with Anode, and it's poor at best. And, it's just tough to make something good and to think of everything. So this just cuts out wasting time and money and energy on foundational parts of the project. And now immediately by doing that, you have Caleb running off now, writing smart contracts, building a DNS system in 2 weeks, like, things that have been on the roadmap for 3 years, 4 years are being done overnight now in this new paradigm of technology. So that's what gets me like really hyped that we're going to actually start checking things off of this roadmap.
We were stuck in the wallet salt mines, and now that this is a survival imperative. We got out of the wallet salt mines, and now we can build the roadmap because that's how it works.
Yeah, totally. And I'm just watching. I mean, people are getting onboarded. I mean, for sure. Like, I'm onboarding people into the Coinbase wallet. By the way, I had to onboard myself in the Coinbase wallet. I had never used a Coinbase wallet prior to 2 weeks ago. I knew it was an absolute beautiful wallet. And it has some weird elements about how you access different networks in it than MetaMask. I've always been really comfortable with MetaMask, and it was, for how foreign it was, now I'm just like, bang, like that is a great wallet. It's really easy to use, and
it's
cool, I can see why people are going to adopt it,
And it's cool to, like, if you're staking, which I hope everyone on here is staking at least something. I mean, if you're not, you're sleeping at the wheel.
Put 1,000 packet on it and stake
just
it.
Go buy packet out of the market and stake it. I mean, dude, it's like the best return on investment you'll ever get. But nonetheless, it's so rad to like get a notification saying, hey, here's $1, here's $3, here's $5. And that happens all day long. And I mean, that's cash money, It's like,
it literally says it. It's like,
it literally shows you how much it is. It's like, the more you do, obviously, the more you make. But like, I don't know about you, but like when Packet first started, I was literally on the Explorer. I just had a screen on the Explorer for my mining devices, and every friggin', all day long, I was checking that thing, and just seeing how much I was yielding.
Yields.
Yeah. And then eventually, once it got down into the 3 digits, in just the hundreds per day, I was like, all right, I'm not even gonna check this thing, because it's like, you're not mining much. But now it just shows up on your phone or on your computer. It's so cool. So I highly suggest everybody just go.
And I mean, God, we've never had phone. I mean, I remember, what was it, 2015, when Facebook IPO'd, and they got railed on by the market because they didn't have a mobile strategy, and they were just like, and a lot of people sold off. It's like kind of a famous story about how Mark Cuban sold Facebook. He bought the IPO and he sold it off at a loss because of the FUD around where Facebook is going to go. Obviously, it's a big mistake on his part, right? But that was 2015. Didn't have a mobile strategy. We're in 2024, and Packet Classic doesn't have a mobile strategy. Like, that's a losing strategy. And so,
but not for the lack of trying. I mean, man, like,
we try.
We've been trying to do mobile strategies. Everything that gets created has a mobile strategy, but it's hard. It's not easy. You need to have a real like squad of dedicated developers that are focused. only on mobile. You got it's like almost two teams. It's like you have a team that's developing for the web, and then you have a team that's developing for mobile. And it's like, who pays for that? Like, how do you if the coin value isn't up and it's declining, how are you going to invest money into developers to help build out these platforms? It's just basically tossing money in the trash, because it's not sustainable. And so
the biggest problem with mobile.
I got food on the table, so
I was just gonna say
I can stick around, but I'm just gonna shut off my camera.
I was just gonna say the last thing. The biggest problem with mobile is that you need to make a decision as to whether you're doing adaptive web like React, or you're building an app. If you're building an app, which obviously is going to be the best UI, the best user experience, then you're building an app. And that's from the ground up. That's a very intense thing. And then not only are you building an app, but you have to build it for so many different devices. It's not just like a turnkey thing, right? And then if you're building an app, are you building it just for which operating system? Just for iOS, or are you building it for Android users as well? And yeah, it's just an unbelievable undertaking, and just so much resources. So not for a lack of trying. We hired a lot of teams, put a lot of resources into it. The Anode wallet, we were actually just talking about that. It probably is going to make sense for us to open source the Anode wallet. We're just talking with some of our stakeholders on that. So that'll be something that for people who want to, on the Packet Classic side, continue to innovate on that technology, then that will be an opportunity. So, we'll have an update on that probably in the next month or so. But yeah, because that will need a lot of work if someone's going to carry the baton for that particular product. But yeah, going forward, now we don't need to worry about wallets on the Packet on base side of things. You just get the absolute best wallets in the game, right out of the gate. Yeah. So I'm pumped. I'm just like, I feel like a new level of inspiration and kind of weight off my shoulders in terms of being able to achieve what we set out to achieve. And also just like seeing the, glint in people's eyes again for getting involved and feeling like there's something that you can do here. So,
and you can even see it in the amount of people that are adding liquidity. Those are true believers. I mean, not many projects have 40 plus people who have added liquidity to the liquidity pool. And that's impressive just say the least. So look, and I see that continuing to increase over time. Once the marketing on really kicks into gear, which is ramping up. We haven't started the marketing on Packet on Base yet, just so everybody is aware. We've been kind of hammering out some things that needed to get hammered out before we could really kick things off. And so there's some really exciting things that are about to roll out, and continuing to create content. There's more videos, content that's coming, especially on how to stake and how to buy Packet, and different just ways of telling this story. It's in the works, and appreciate everybody who's sticking around, even the people that are upset, but they're still here showing up to these lives. It's important for us to all get together. I mean, at the end of the day, you have two horses in the race now, and we hope that both make it to succeed. And it's just like, let's come together and get this thing to where we all want it to be. I mean,
for sure,
that's what we've always wanted to do, is have our community participate, and now you can participate on the most insane level. So
yeah, there's 42 liquidity providers. There's more liquidity providers in this project than projects that have 150 $250 million market caps. I was just looking at Moomoo. Moomoo's got 21 liquidity providers. We have 42, so we have twice as many liquidity providers as Moomoo. The next target is PopCat, which is a $600 million project, been up to $1 billion just a couple of weeks ago. and they have 57 infrastructure providers. I bet you we have over 57 infrastructure
liquidity.
Liquidity providers. Sorry. I bet we have over 57 liquidity providers in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, it's quickly growing.
And also,
it's really
the last thing I do want to say is, so the liquidity has been locked. The initial liquidity, all of it's been locked.
Yeah.
The reason why you go on like Dex Screener or Dex Tools and it shows that only 70% is locked is because of how many people have added liquidity and then staked it into the packet lockbox. And unfortunately, that's a process to get recognized by these security companies that allow for like Dex Screener, Dex Tools to get the symbol that says the liquidity is locked. I've been in communication with these security companies trying to get them to recognize it. It's not like, hey, there's not like a place where you can go and say, hey, look over here. It's like going into different channels and try to get people's attention and ask for help. It's been a process, but hopefully that will become recognized in a short time. But you can always go to you can always search for maybe I'll post a link so people can look at it or something, just so you can show that it is 99% locked. It's just, unfortunately, we don't have that little symbol that says
well, it's locked relative to the different locks, right? Some people have it locked for a week, some people have it locked for a year. And what we need to do is get one of these security companies to integrate with our lockbox contract so that they can update perpetually of what the lock is. Because like maybe someone puts in a big infrastructure or a big liquidity stake, and then it does unlock after 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months, then the number would come down. But that's how it's already set up right now, where it's like when we lock the liquidity, the locked liquidity went up once it processed, once that happened. So they're already used to that. The key here is that I actually think that Packet on Base just invented the stake to earn protocol is something new in the blockchain space. I actually
though.
What's that?
For liquidity, you mean?
Yeah, for liquidity provision. I think that well, not just liquidity provision, but the stake to earn like the yield contract, the yielding contract that we created. I think that's incredibly unique there's obviously proof of stake projects out there. So, I mean, that's not unique in that regard. But I think what is unique is that most new projects, if they launch a token, what they'll do is they'll take 100% of the tokens, they'll give a bunch of them to their devs, and then, or keep them for themselves, whatever's left over, they go lock it into a contract and or the liquidity pool. They put whatever the paired coin on the other side. So it could be Ethereum, it could be USDT, whatever they end up doing, they lock it in and then they usually burn that. So that's why you'll see 99.99% liquidity locked and burned. And then everyone who buys into that project is just buying those, buying into those coins. But there's no incentive for anybody else to provide liquidity. What I think is incredibly unique is that if you lock a certain amount of liquidity, but then if you have a yielding contract where you're economically incentivizing community to allocate liquidity, additional liquidity, like crowdsource liquidity into a locking mechanism, what happens is then your community now has a vested interest to yield. Instead of just buying to get the token, now you create this kind of game theory of people locking liquidity so that they can earn a yield. And what that does is that you have now community members locked in for periods of time. They're getting paid for doing that. And it keeps you there. So it's not just like, as most projects, once they go up in value, everyone sells it off. And then it's just like, you'll watch these projects bleed out because everyone sells them out and then they just take off when it's done. And so what I think is incredibly unique is that if you create a yielding contract, now you have people with a vested interest over, in the case of Packet, 58 more years of yielding. So it's like now people are like thinking, hey, I could be here for, 50 years being involved with this project, or I have locked liquidity. Like now I'm like, have a vested interest in this project. I'm not just going to take off if there's a black swan event in the crypto markets, or if the price goes up really high and I can just sell off my whole entire bag and then leave and look for the next project. So I do think that there is something really unique about how we approach this, bringing the mining mentality over to kind of the token side of things. And I believe that if more token projects add a yielding contract to their project, you'll see these projects, even like the most popular projects, you'll see people become become liquidity providers. And then now they're like involved with the project long term, but it also creates an incentive for new people come in to get part of that yield. And if you're making money instead of just like buying, holding, and selling, then it keeps people there for a longer period of time. So I think that's what I want to get out and like tell that narrative. And I was actually excited that it'd be cool to put this contract out there in a more public way, so that people can copycat what Packet's doing and see, projects that have more longevity as a result of the yielding mentality. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for the long space here today. And yeah, just go start staking. Make sure to use your affiliate code to get those bonus yields. And yeah, if you have any questions, we're constantly in the Discord and Telegram, Twitter, wherever you're the place you like to go. Feel free to ask, and we'll do our best to get to you. So
cool.
Appreciate you all, and yeah, dude. We'll see you guys in the next.
At risk of sounding like Boss Tweed, get out there and vote.
Oh yeah, go vote for Caleb, because this is important to get this tech completed so that we can have this for everybody. So
well, it's going to get completed, but the people that vote for me are going to have the early access.
Yeah. If you want access, go vote for Caleb.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate you all, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.